Cyanide is what you may know as a poison slash compound that people use to put in pills so that they can kill themselves or kill others. And this is often shown in movies. And today I'll be going over how we actually make something like cyanide, like hydrogen cyanide and potassium cyanide, which is the type of cyanide used in those pills. However, I think we first need to go over some uses of cyanide and its brief history. Just regular ionic cyanide is a naturally occurring element found in plants like the seeds of apples or pears or almonds and black cherries. The cyanide was mostly used as a weapon of warfare. The first use of this was back in Roman Emperor Nero, who ruled from 37 to 60 ACE, and he did this by getting cherry laurel water, who contains cyanide, as a poison. Now we can fast forward to 1800 years, where in the First Franco-Prussian War, 1870, the French Emperor Napoleon III had his troops dip their bayonets in cyanide. And of course, cyanide was used again in both world wars, being used by the French and Austrians in World War One and the Nazis in World War Two. The first isolation of cyanide occurred in 1782. So cyanide was found to be one carbon atom and one nitrogen atom. The nitrogen atom, of course, had the three electrons, and and carbon had another three electrons that they bonded with in the covalent bond. Later, we would discover that cyanide can also be created by bacteria and fungi. The most recent uses of cyanide in warfare that was mostly notable was in 1980 in the Iran-Iraq War, and also some pretty bad shit on the Kurds in Syria and Iraq. Like I said before, cyanide is extremely toxic and it's a fast killer, and we'll go into how it kills that fast in a second here. However, it has proven that it has other uses other than just murdering people, like manufacturing pesticides. Now, these pesticides can be manufactured with cyanide because when cyanide is used, it will interfere with the animal's cellular respiration, just like it does with a human. Cyanide can do this because it binds itself to the enzymes, which are basically like proteins. It transfers energy from the oxygen molecules that we breathe in. The enzyme that does this is called cytochrome C oxidase, which specifically contains iron, and that is where the cyanide will latch on to prevent the creation of ATP, which are basically energy from these oxygen. This means that even if you do breathe in plenty of oxygen, it won't give you energy, and without the energy needed, you will rapidly die because of respiratory failure. Another use of cyanide, which is in medication, ironically enough, the medication that is most notable is sodium nitroprusside. This medication is used for lowering blood pressure quickly in emergency situations. Like, for example, when high blood pressure can cause organ damage for the victim. It can also be used in surgeries. I mean, it is a more controlled version, I'm pretty sure, that is being used. It allows for low blood pressure during the surgery, which decreases like the amount of bleeding. Of course, there are plenty of side effects to this, but these are its main applications. Alright, looking at it here, we're going to be going over the bonds and compounds and how it's formed. So let's start off with probably the easiest one. This is potassium hydroxide. The potassium hydroxide here is pretty self-explanatory. Potassium has a positive 1 charge, while hydroxide here has a negative 1 charge, which means that these two will just they'll give an electron to each. Okay, so potassium here will lose an electron, and hydroxide will gain an electron. So yeah, that's how potassium hydroxide works. Now let's move on to hydrogen cyanide. So like the name suggests, hydrogen cyanide is made up of hydrogen and the cyanide. Cyanide is, like I said before, just carbon and nitrogen. These two will form a covalent bond. Nitrogen has a -3 charge, while carbon has a -4 charge. So they each bring 3 electrons to share, and then they form a covalent bond. Nitrogen will have a full outer shell because it has a -3 charge, and will be sharing 3 electrons. But you may notice that carbon has 1 electron left over. This is perfect as hydrogen, who needs an electron, will form an ionic bond with carbon. Now you might be thinking, wait, but if this is If this is ionic and this is covalent, what bond is hydrogen cyanide overall? The answer would be both, because technically we have to account for both of these. So, yes, if someone asks you is hydrogen cyanide ionic or covalent, you're going to have to say both. Moving back to potassium cyanide, here you'll notice that water is created as a result of this chemical on its reaction notation. This is important, as we'll see in a second. So in order for this reaction to work, we also need water in order for these two to actually react. This is important because water is a great solvent. It'll break apart these bonds that are created. And then once these are broken apart, hydrogen and potassium here will become radicals, which means that they will want to react with literally anything in order to stop it from being a radical. So this is where we also use stoichiometry to understand this better. And in stoichiometry, we're going to have to first look at all the number of atoms here. So we have a potassium, we have two hydrogen, we have a carbon, and we have a nitrogen, and also an oxygen. The These two here was basically just cyanide, but and you'll notice here that H2O here is perfect because these two can react with each other to form water, which is down here. And the cyanide here will have to collide with the potassium to create the potassium cyanide. Now the issue here is that we don't exactly have full control over this actually happening. That's why we can create byproducts. Chemists do have like some control over this. We can like place like positives and negatives together in hopes that they will collide. But we don't have, well, we can't like predict or like be certain about anything. So yes, we can't create byproducts. We can only decrease the chance of that happening. So here we have the reaction notation for hydrogen cyanide. And what we did up here was single element replacement. So we're going to do the exact same thing down here. So as you can so we got CH4 here, so carbon and four hydrogen. This is methane, and then we have ammonia over here. Then we have three oxygen, well, three two oxygens, and this should give us the six water and the two hydrogen cyanide. So we can use the same method up here. If we let me zoom in a bit here. But yeah, as you can see, so we have two carbon and eight hydrogen here. If we just do so we're gonna use stoichiometry here. So we got eight hydrogen and then another six hydrogen. So there is a total of 14 hydrogens here, and then we also have two extra carbon, got two extra nitrogen, and then we got six oxygens or three. And you might be able to notice that this is perfect for this side. So what this six water needs is six hydrogens and two oxygens. So it needs six hydrogen twos, okay? And six hydrogen twos means that we need 12 hydrogens. It also needs six oxygens, which we have. So these two, so we're gonna need these two oxygens, and then we're gonna need these oxygens in order to form this water, and then we're gonna be needing 12 of these hydrogens, so we only have two left. And guess what? 2H, 2C, 2N. That's exactly what the two hydrogen cyanide will be created. Now, another important part I did leave out was the catalyst that is required. We need platinum as a catalyst in order for this to happen. Not only that, we also need an incredible amount of heat at detailing at about 1200 Celsius or 2190 freedom units. And the heat here is extremely important. High heat will break apart all of these bonds here. So the high heat will break apart all of these bonds. And with these bonds broken, we have tons of these radicals all running around, and then they will collide. Platinum is good for this as it has a large surface area, and it will help with the breaking apart of all of these bonds. And these radicals will run around and then they will collide with each other in order to form these new compounds. And like I said above here, we can control, at least have some sort of control over what bond is created and what bond is not. We can put the positives next to the, or at least next to the negatives, and hope that they will collide, but we can't guarantee a result. Either way, with these in mind, we can create hydrogen cyanide, and then we can use the hydrogen cyanide up here to create the potassium cyanide, which is the thing you put in the pills that people use to kill themselves, or yeah, or poison others. But yeah, that's about it. You can now make hydrogen cyanide if you got some methane and some ammonia and also some oxygen. So good luck finding those. And if you have hydrogen cyanide, you can easily make potassium cyanide once you get some potassium hydroxide. And yeah, that's about it. See ya.